Hi, dear. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Are you
Are you,
ready? Looking forward to preaching this week?
well, I'm not preaching this week, but I can help you out with a text study.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's bring our brains together. Here we go.
Yes.
The gospel is from Mark because it's a brand new church season. So Mark
Yep.
chapter 1.
One,
I I mean, each gospel reading has um they begin differently. Each one of them begins differently, but they all have John the Baptist somehow.
right. It's just the beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, the Son of God.
It really is. I mean, and Mark, characterizes John down to, I mean, just gets every part of him from head to
Yep.
toe,
I
head
mean,
to toe.
everything but the smell. But you
Um,
know what that appearance calls back to?
hmm,
Elijah,
oh,
the
yeah,
prophet Elijah.
yeah,
So you have John as this prophetic character out literally in the wilderness.
yep, yep, out in the wilderness and everything.
Because
And I
there
mean,
really
he
weren't
just,
any cities around the Jordan, right?
there were
There were some.
Jericho.
I thought the walls got knocked down on that one.
It did.
Okay.
But I mean, it's located by the river over there.
They
I
they
remember
rebuilt
being
something.
there. But the voice of one crying out in the wilderness, um, is fascinating around there because the desert and it wasn't like flat desert. It's hilly desert,
It's like
hilly desert.
rocky, uneven.
Yep, yep. That was, I mean, and then are these clumps of foliage and growth and everything, and the Judean countryside, um, by the baptized him in the River Jordan. That was like the place where if you were wandering in the wilderness, you would find refuge there. You would find refreshments there. You would find renewal because there was trees, there was vegetation, there was water.
Let's say there was water. It was like a little. Well, it wouldn't be a little oasis because it was a fairly long river, but in that area, that was like the river, the source of water.
Mhm. Still is. This is renewing, and I just and Mark is capturing this point of renewal. I mean, it's just he may be this crazy guy who screamed off the. I take anything the gospel says. He screams it. He just yells and yells.
Although
The
this
one
isn't.
who's more powerful than I is coming after me. Does all that kind of stuff. But in
Well,
a sense, he's like, it is craziness, and he's just trying to get people's attention. He's pointing them to the awesomeness of what is to come. Um, and it's kind of interesting because I think he's heard this call story not just from his connection with God, but he heard this from his mom Elizabeth, and he heard this from his
mhm.
dad, and he heard this from his aunt Mary, I'm sure, and just kind of the time is now. It's just, I think Saint Nick wants to do the gospel reading Bible study with us.
What?
Should I let Saint Nick in?
Of course you got to let Saint Nick in.
Okay, I'll leave him in. I'll admit him. We'll see what this goes.
What? Saint
Oh,
Nick?
oh, oh, there
Whoa!
they are. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Well, Merry
Wow!
Christmas,
I'm
Saint
so
Nick.
glad you're being COVID safe.
Hey,
Yeah.
we're trying. I mean, all my elves are sitting there going, sitting there saying to me, Santa, I mean, and I'm like, hey, wait a minute. Am I St. Nicholas or am I Santa? And they're like, well, I thought you were both. And I'm like, yeah, I am, so the worst part of it is that we have to keep these masks on and things to that effect. And a couple of my elves are a little hard of hearing, and so they're not really liking this very well because they can't read lips very well with that either. And so it's just kind of it's a learning curve along the way.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
bet you getting all
But
those things together.
you guys are doing okay up there, aren't you?
We are doing very well. We've isolated ourselves because we don't have too many people that like to travel up to the North Pole. They think it's a little cold up there. You know, where I think where you guys are at, I mean, I'm sorry, but you know, that's like the tropics for me down there.
Well, I'm glad to
It's
hear
kind
that.
of, it is, you know,
Although I'm jealous,
I
I want
don't
to
need
be
my
up there
snow
with there's
boots
the
quite
snow.
yet.
Well, you know, we've only got 37 inches of snow on the ground right now.
Only 37.
Yeah,
Okay.
you
That's
know,
not too bad.
Rudolph's not really happy with the way things are right now because he likes it at about 60. So that way, then he gets a good running jump when he takes off.
He has a little extra altitude to start
Holy
off with.
cow.
That's it. Yep. So
Wow.
the two of you are
So,
doing well, right?
like,
I was
we're
checking
doing
on the list, and We're
super.
both still on the good list, so that's a good thing.
Hey, that's
Oh,
great.
phew. That is good. I mean, it's the second week of Advent coming up, so we're preparing the way of the Lord.
That's
Yep.
right. Hey, that's a good thing, isn't it?
It
Yeah.
is. You did a lot of that, didn't you?
How's that preparation going? Because you know, I mean, the season of Advent is a time of preparation, and you know, when we hear about, you know, this was the second week of Advent, and so we're going to be talking about John the Baptizer, right?
Right.
Right.
And so, you know, he was preparing the way for Jesus, and he had a lot of work to do, and he prepared the way to grow to understand Jesus, the Son of God. Can I ask you a few questions about your life and what, you know, may others know, and how you can prepare for that Jesus, you know, coming? I mean, because it's a celebration of his birthday and things, and you know, I've been doing it for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
You have been. You have been. Tell us a little bit about your life.
Well, sure. You know, I was born in the year 280 in a place called Patara, which is actually, a lot of people think it's really in Greece, but it's really now today known as Turkey. And you know, it's in that Eastern Bloc there, so it's a little bit different there. But it was also where the Apostle Paul was at as well. And by the time that my birth there in Patara, it was a Christian community. And so, you know, by the time I was there, and then there was a bishop and things, and my parents were Christians and they were very wealthy. And so we really devoted ourselves to the church and the work and helping people who were in need. And by the time I was 5, I was able to read all the scriptures and things. I mean, you guys could read all of that by the time you were 5, weren't you?
I don't think I could do that.
No.
I had to wait until at least 8.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know, I was able to do that because I was tutored along the way there
Okay.
too. I mean, that's the advantage to being on the wealthy side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was an only child. And then when my parents died when I was 16, I actually inherited all their wealth. But I couldn't live on my own. So I actually had to go with my uncle, which was actually, he was an abbot at the monastery in town. And so, you know, that was kind of difficult. And it was a really change of pace, too, to go from the house that I grew up in to back to into that monastery thing, too, because it was a different way of living there, too. I mean, it was a little difficult there because transitions were not easy there.
Wow. Wow. So you're considered you're Santa Claus, you're Saint Nick's, you're like that's
You're
it.
famous.
That's your name. You're the guy. You're
Well,
the guy, right?
There's all kinds of legends about me, and
Yeah.
you know, legends. You know, the truth about legends are, don't you? You know,
What?
legends are that there's some truth in it, but there's also some things, you know, kind of like, you know, we have them walrus tails up here because, you know, we don't. I mean, you all may call them fish tails down there,
Okay.
but we call them walrus tails up here because, you know, because we're up here in the north, you know. So,
Got it.
so those legends are is the day that when I was consecrated as bishop, a young woman was bathing her child, and when she heard the bells that were actually going to be dinging because of that ordination there and things, she left the child in the water, which actually happened to be on the wood stove, and came to the consecration. But the irony to it is that when she came back, the child was fine. It wasn't, you know, it didn't turn into soup or anything to that effect. And so,
Say, it doesn't sound like irony. It sounds like a miracle.
So that was a miracle just in and of
Yeah.
itself there. I mean, think about it. How many times have you ever actually been in pool before, and things, and she was
Get all
there for
pruny.
probably a good 45 minutes, and so
Yeah.
the child was fine, and so that was the first miracle that was reported about me as being Saint Nicholas there. Then
Okay.
some years later, there was a ship that got caught in a terrible storm, and the sailors were scared, kind of like Jesus and his disciples there, when
Yeah, in
Jesus
the
is
boat on the
having those
lake.
waves coming in on. I always wondered, I kind of want to go to those disciples and go, I thought you were fishermen, and haven't you ever been in a boat when it was rocking a little bit there with that and things? But that's another story for a later time there with that. But the storm was rather interesting because these sailors said that there was a stranger that came on board and then actually piloted the ship to actually land. And when they actually got there, that person was gone. And then when they came into the church there I was, and they said I was the one that actually piloted that ship in safely into that shoreline there. So that was miracle number 2.
Wow.
So then there's the third one, which really does kind of get me irate about things, because it deals with an innkeeper who was really cruel to 3 boys and placed their bodies into a pickle barrel. And legend says that he intended to actually feed those boys to the customers as meat. And because he wanted to reduce cost of food and things to that effect. Well, when I heard about that despicable act, I went to that inn, confronted the man, and when I prayed, those boys were raised back to life, and somehow I became the patron saint of coopers. Those are the guys that make the barrels and things
Yeah.
to that effect.
Right.
And so I don't know how I got to be there, because pickle barrels and things to that effect, I would think that they would not like me because I was taking them out of there and things to that effect. But so I became the patron saint of coopers, also in Greece and Russia, but also of cities too. And the thing about it is that as a saint, I guess they just must like this long hair and things to that effect. I guess it must think
Very
that they're
stylish.
like Fabio or something to that effect along the way. Because the reality of it is that I'm the patron saint for brides, grooms, druggists, judges, pawnbrokers. I don't know how I got to pawnbrokers there along the way, but it's one of those. And
I think I know.
penitent thieves and others along the way. So reality of it is that it's Saint Nick. Hey, they all love me and I love them, because I just want you all to succeed in life. And in any way I can make you smile, any way that I can make you happy, in any way that I can help you in life, that's where I'm at.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, all those things, your life pointed to the goodness that God wants for all of us and for the whole world. And that's kind of what saints do, is help us connect our lives better with God's life, with God's.
That's right.
With us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as Christians, especially, when we think about saints, we think of those as hagios, and that's a term that's referred to in Greek that is a special thing or a person who's devoted to God.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the 2 of you are devoted to God, because after all, I have you on my good list there and things like that.
Does that mean we're saints?
You're working on it, Justin. Phyllis is, but you're not.
There's a saint.
You're
Phyllis.
both doing really well there, and you're both doing really good, and helping spread that word and to help with really people in developing their Christian faith, and that's really the most important thing that we can do for one another there.
Very true. Now, how did, because I've heard of Saint Nick, but then we hear about Santa Claus. What's that? How did that? I mean, it's nice to have multiple names for sure.
Yeah.
Some people call me
Don't call
Philly.
me late for supper. Mrs. Claus would get mad at me if I didn't show up.
Oh.
But yeah, the thing about it is that when you sit there and you think about whether it's Saint Nicholas or Santa Claus, it can get kind of confusing there along the way. And the reality of it is that it's really it's how you relate there with what's going on in life. Because the reality of it is that if you can relate in the church to St. Nicholas and the work that we've done in helping to preserve life and to help one another, then go ahead by all means to call me St. Nicholas. If you're looking at ways in which that I help today in the world where, you know, we've got this coronavirus, I mean, obviously the mask here and things to that effect along the way. And we have to do our part to actually help one another too. And so the thing about it that I guess that I want to, if I could say one last thing for you guys, is that when you help one another, it's to help them so that you're not drawing attention to yourself, but that you're helping others and helping them with life and helping them to succeed in following Jesus. Because the reality of it is, as Jesus said, that we are to love one another. And isn't that what we're all supposed to be doing there in things? And that can be as simple as wearing a mask. That can be simple as helping one another when you're in need for food or clothing or shelter, those basic premises. It's not, you know, getting the newest, latest Nintendo game or getting the newest sparkly dolls or things. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like those. Those are all good. But the question then becomes, do we really need them or do we just want them?
True.
The holiday is focusing on how much God has given us through Jesus and how, you know, we can give that to others, because you have done that in your story and your history. And John the Baptist prepared the way of the Lord, and it fell down to you, and then it falls down to me and Justin, and it falls down to everyone.
That's right. You know, and that's the thing that I think that's really the most important thing that we can learn from one another is just that helping hand that's along the way there, and just reaching out. That makes a huge difference in people's lives. I mean, I'm just a human being. I mean, you know, the reality of it is all these legends and stories have built up to the point of where, you know, Santa is bigger than life, and so is St. Nicholas. But, you know, I was just a person too, the same as you two.
Wow. So I'll be working on St. Phyllis pretty soon, you know, get working on it.
That should be good. I will join you in that. That would be good there, Phil.
I don't know
You got
any
one
St.
recommendation.
Oh, well, I think I got a sermon for this week now.
Hey, there you go. All right.
Prepare
Glad
the
to be
way.
of help.
Thank you very, very much.
Yes, it was
You are
great
more
to
than
see
welcome. Merry Christmas and happy Advent to all of you down there in the South, you know.